You know, I didn't want to say this. I was thinking to myself, do I want to say this? Because when other people say this, it always comes across so elitist. Gosh darn it, I think I'm gonna have to say it. When it comes to Butch Hartman shows, we had it so much better back in our day. Ayo, what is up everyone? Oh my god. Anyway, it is the Alpha J of the Alpha J show, and oof. This episode comes from my top 10 worst episodes of 2017, ranking number 3 out of everything that came out last year at the time of recording this. I gave Bunsen is a Beast 3 separate chances, months split apart, and every episode I watch is just previous than the one I watched before. This is without a shadow of the doubt the worst out of the 4 Butch Hartman created shows that I talked about. When I think of creators that are still making things today, like Craig McCracken, I enjoy Powerpuff Girls and Fosters, and I'm well aware that Wanda is the more comedic of the 3. But as you can tell from my previous take on it, I enjoy that as well. So I can't be biased towards the new, which I never really had. Well, I guess we'll find out when we look at today's episode, the Beast of Friends crossover.
Today's a big day, Mikey! We're going to celebrate my 6-month friend-iversary with my good friend Cosmo!
You know, I know we just started out, but here's this thing about this little thing called exposition that a lot of Bunsen is a Beast episodes seem to miss. Cartoons generally use exposition because it creates interest for what would make the normal seem extraordinary or worthwhile to spend 11 minutes watching. However, here you're just banking off of the fleeting active Fairly Oddparents fans and Bunsen is a Beast fans to watch. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to not scroll through the comments of your YouTube full crossover short and see how many people gravitate towards Danny Phantom and not even know what Bunsen is a Beast is. Also, I'm not sure if a rule is broken, even though the rules at this point are as inactive as Friendster, and if using the I haven't heard that in years is more funny or sad at this point. However, considering also on my top worst list, Mr. Turner flat out saw Cosmo floating with no clever spin on it, I shouldn't be so surprised. So let's talk comedy instead. Bunsen has an enemy called Amanda, who is trying to murder Bunsen. Contrast this with the Danny Phantom episode involving divorce, a gift in a ghost zone, and a jail warden villain. Contrast this with a tried and true method of a lying plotline with varied jokes throughout and a good lesson. What does this show have?
Hey! Where's the boom boom? There it is.
Essentially the same joke repeated ad nauseum. Don't believe me?
Hello? Piano? Once again, where's the boom boom? There it is.
Now in my Tough Puppy review, I mentioned that Hartman loves running gags, and this is also true. It's a tried and true method. However, the goal of getting them to work is to vary them so that although the gag is coming back up again, it was used in a slightly different way that makes it funny. The problem with this show and a few other things which Hartman has had a hand in over the recent years is that there is no true variation between the first time, second time, or 25th time. Sure, you'll have the bare minimum of slapstick, which is only exacerbated by the cheaply looking animation, but for the most part, the comedy lacks heavily.
Monroe and Bunsen pulled the old interdimensional portal thing. Talk about a cliche.
You know what else is a cliche? Having a character like Amanda, having her jump through the exact same 3 portals that Bunsen pointed out were wrong portals for comedy. But since we're already speaking on the topic of animation, I want to point out exactly my problem with Bunsen, and I guess Fairly Oddparents at the time animation issue. Fairly Oddparents was built on quick and more human-like movements, which means not as consistent, not this smooth movement where you can see the tweens very easily. It feels more like a fan animation rather than something made by a company that has all of the resources and assets they'd use to make these episodes. It often feels like they use shortcuts to get episodes out much quicker, and I know there are things like budget for instance, but how much budget do you need to create a good story? A lot of my issues wouldn't even matter if the story was good, but it's not. All of this is happening because the writers wanted to, with no natural ease into the story. I'm also going to assume this is non-canon, so Mikey knowing that Timmy has fairies is just because this isn't a part of the Fairly Oddparents universe. The episode does build in the background that the bumbling fools are Amanda and Crocker, and yes, they are going to do exactly what you think. So they all meet each other and give very weak attempts at comedy.
For my first wish, I'd like to get rid of my third arm. That's a lot of numbers, but I think I got it. Timmy, can I make more wishes? Please, can I?
Well, I let
you wish the first time, but technically it's against the rules for people without fairy godparents to make wishes. You know what? I like you, kid. You remind me of a younger me.
So it is canon. Alright.
My name is Denzel Crocker, and I am a certifiable fairy hunter.
You don't say. I'm a hunter of beasts myself.
This is probably the closest thing we're ever going to have resembling development of any kind. So Bunsen is excited to see the fairies. And pretty much the rest of this episode is just him reacting. If you notice that I tend to breeze past this episode a bit, it's because a lot of it is just...
Thing, but it's been 10 minutes, buddy! I want to do it again!
And that's an empty episode, pretty much based off of the hype of a crossover between both shows. Unlike the Timmy Power Hour, something I reviewed a long time ago, the characters interact more than this. Seriously, compare that to this, and you'll notice that even if this was stretched out to a movie's length, there is no comparison. If the episode doesn't even have enough to fill 11 minutes, why quintuple that amount? We also get Timmy's dad, who sees floating fairies, even stated as Cosmo and Wanda, but you can't tell his dad, that's against the rules, but telling Mikey is okay, even though you shouldn't be telling any human at all you have fairies. But because stupid, which is essentially Cosmo and Mr. Turner, it doesn't even matter. Also, look at Timmy's mom. Something looks off about her design. I can't really put my finger on it. No, seriously, if you touch this cartoon, you might get infected with 5 minutes in flash syndrome. I don't even want to hear, but tons of people worked on this. Because my reviews are meant for the company, the head honchos. Not enough budget? Then that's a problem. Because if this is the subpar content they want to put out, then why should anyone choose to support it? Think of it this way. Would Nickelodeon want their headquarters to be built with the same effort, care, and quality that was put into this episode? Well, considering the lack of a foundation for this episode, not if they wanted to collapse immediately. What else is there? Well, like you think, Amanda and Crocker eventually team up. And the boom joke comes back because why wouldn't it? They're clearly scraping the bottom of the barrel for their humor. For instance, you have this gem that has never been heard before.
I wish for super speed! I ran around the world and saw super cool things, like the Leaning Tower of Pizza. Turns out it's not made of pizza. I learned that the hard way.
But let's put them aside, poofing in front of Crocker, Amanda, and Timmy's mom to another dimension. We're now on Bunsen's side, and could you notice a lack of characters they had to work off here? Like with the TTG PPG crossover. It seemed like they had a small team, and really wanted to get this out to capitalize on the... 1 second. Popularity. You know what's cliche? Having Amanda jump through these 3 portals. No, I did not repeat this for no reason. I did have a reason for repeating this. Why? Because you know what else is cliche? Having Crocker do the exact same thing. Giving the exact same reactions. Getting the exact same ending Black Friday joke. And pretty much doing this in the exact same way. The only reason I'm incredibly disappointed in my tone is that the show is over. And this is one of the 4 pillars of what Butch created. How could you have not made this work? I know mind you, partners, a monkey wasn't high art, but at least they had the concept of using an anomaly down. Obvious animation looping and poor composition down. Timmy and Wanda warned Mikey that too many wishes will cause Wanda's wand to go out. And because Mikey said his last wish was to ride a dinosaur, if you went to the Butch Hartman school of and then the opposite happens, you would know that Mikey would cause the wands to go out. However, unlike in Tough Puppy and Danny Phantom, the opposite happens every single time. So if the opposite thing you would expect happens every time, does that make it the new normal? Well, pondering for that question is a lot more entertaining than what happens next. Amanda and Crocker find them for a 3rd time, first being through a portal and second through the park. I'm surprised Timmy's mom didn't find their way. I mean, nothing really matters when you have no grasp on a solid story.
It's time for the traditional friendiversary toast. I'm going with toasted marble rye.
And I'm going with Melba toast. It's dry, flavorless, and not even toast.
Would the Latin term for that toast be Bunsenum beastus? So yes, Amanda and Crocker are trying to catch Bunsen, Cosmo, and Wanda. However, as you remember, Wanda's wand is pretty much out. It's all up to Cosmo. Will he save the day?
Poop us out of here!
Oh, sorry, Timmy. My wand's toast too, because I accidentally toasted it.
Come on, I was testing you. You did go to the Butch Hartman school of and then the opposite happens, right? Well, to be positive, there is at least some form of tension here. Maybe they could have a clever way of getting the wands to work. Maybe Jorgen will come and see what has been happening. Maybe Timmy's mom will come back into the picture. But hey, at least no one has magic to work with.
My wand
wand isn't toast after all. This was just toast shaped like a wand. My wand is full of magic because all up in my grill Timmy would never use it.
Imagine if I did the entire review that way. Wouldn't that be annoying? Well, they end up getting out because of Bunsen's detachable arm. I guess that's a subtle reference to earlier when he was attaching other parts of his body. Sure, I'll give the episode that. However, why would Cosmo say that Timmy was, quote, all up in his grill when he just wanted Cosmo to go do his job and save them? Yeah, but you understand how much you can get away with by saying, because he's stupid all the time? It's honestly lazy, deplorable, and once again, made for hype. They get out and honestly, do you even want to hear the ending? I bet they won't say exactly what the characters say during the resolution.
You saved us, Bunsen!
Thanks to your idea, Mikey. How couldn't I have done it without you?
Mikey and Bunsen, it was great meeting you guys. And I'm super happy we weren't annihilated by Mr. Crocker and the Spitting Girl.
They end on the piano gag, and this was Beast of Friends. I like Danny Phantom, I like most of Fairly Oddparents, and I even like Tough Puppy. However, I don't like Bunsen as a Beast. I find it to be a lazy cartoon designed to be completely streamlined, with no artistic integrity at all. Everything about it screams stock, and the animation is way too smooth to work with the Fairly Oddparents slapstick charm. Honestly, I do not recommend it, nor do I recommend the show as a whole. If I ever find a good episode, I'll let you know, but don't hold your breath. Maybe you disagree. Let me know in the comments down below, follow me at the ALPHAJ Show, and go into the request video for any other topic that you think I should cover. If you really like this video, you should check out my Tough Puppy review to catch up on the road to 100. Make sure to subscribe and feel free to consider my Patreon. As always, I hope your time is well spent, and Alpha out.